Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I take a look at the 2010 film Clash of the Titans. It has a 27% on the tomato meter and a 40% on the audience score. It is certainly rotten, and I will agree right at the beginning of this, it is rotten. I wouldn't argue otherwise. I watched this in the last 2 hours just to make sure that I wasn't imagining things when I kind of got the feeling that I remember this as being rotten. This film is from, 9 years ago, going almost on 10 years, and I remembered that it was rotten, largely because I found it too long and too boring, and we're going to find out if the audience scores, the audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, even at this current time, would probably agree with me. Well, I say the biggest sin here is that there was a lot of CGI used, and instead of that CGI convincing me that I was in fact in this mythical Greek story, it just convinced me that it was all completely unreal and unbelievable, because the CGI, while it's obviously very expensive and very drawn out and very detailed and very shiny and very pretty and very cool looking, if you will, no question about that, that same CGI just makes this whole thing feel like it's not in the real world at all, that it's unreal. And yeah, it looks cool, but let me just say that when you had the gods, the ancient Greek gods, standing around on their pedestals on Mount Olympus, or it's presumed that they're wherever Mount Olympus happens to be in this fantasy tale, they stand over and walk over a rather detailed and realistic model of Earth that has its own weather patterns and etc. And the funny part is when you leave Mount Olympus and the camera, the point of view takes you back to what's supposed to be the real world, the real planet Earth. The real planet Earth actually looks much like that same model, and it looks like a gigantic Earth-sized model. It doesn't look real at all. But I applaud the CGI artists for their work and their attention to detail, but this completely blows away my believability, and it doesn't look real. I'm sorry, and I can't suspend my disbelief long enough to get into what the actual story drama is that's going on. And that story is also it's a very long, drawn out, and boring story. This is the original. This is the original Clash of the Titans from 1981. This remake in 2010 is based on this 1981 film. However, the 1981 film is a very linear, straightforward plot. It doesn't meander around and try to give you flashbacks to explain things out of order and confuse the audience. No, it goes straight from point A to B to C in a linear fashion. It's not hard to follow. It's not an overly long movie. It's not drawn out and boring. You don't check your watch during this. And in fact, I saw the original Clash of the Titans in the theater in 1981. I believe it was like a Saturday showing, when I was off from school. Everybody enjoyed it. The parents enjoyed it as well as the kids. It was a very popular movie. Yes, by today's standards, the CGI and the effects look really bad. It's got stop motion animation. But at the time, this was fine. And, you can't judge this movie as rotten just because the effects don't hold up to today's standards. They certainly don't. This movie obviously isn't rotten because it has a 70% on the audience score and 68 on the tomato meter. The critics even rather liked this. They did at the time, and I guess they still do. Now, however, when we look at 2010's remake and we get the 40% on the audience score, well, a lot of that's because this is not a linear story. It's got confusing flashback scenes that are pointless. There's no reason for them other than it seems to draw out the running time. And a lot of times it's confusing. I mean, eight minutes into this movie, I found myself in the middle of this, elaborate, chaotic CGI battle scene, and I barely knew what was going on. And I mean, just barely. And I was watching this the whole time. I had my attention focused on it. The original movie from 1981 was not hard to follow, even from a little kid's point of view. This one, as an adult, I had trouble figuring out what the hell was going on. Some of that was the flashback sequences, and some of it was just, it wasn't explained. It started in a fashion without any explanation, and you're kind of trying to fill in the blanks, taking knowledge from the original movie to try to fill in these missing pieces. Well, I can only imagine from the perspective of an audience member who hadn't been old enough or hadn't seen the first movie in 1981, they wouldn't know anything of what the hell was going on in this. The only reason I was able to piece it together in the beginning, smooth it over in my mind, so to speak, was because I had seen the original several times. So let's get right into the audience reviews on this and find out if I'm not the only one that thinks this thing is rotten. We have one from 6 days ago, 2 stars. Nah, just stick with the original 1981 flick. It may be more cheesier, but it has a better sense of adventure. Ray Harryhausen stop-motion creatures still look better than these CGI monstrosities. Yeah, the CGI is just over-the-top, expensive, shiny, flashy. It's not bad CGI, it's just overused, and it just draws you right out of any realism that this movie could have had. There's so much of it thrown at you at one time that you're just overwhelmed with CGI chaos, so to speak. And almost every scene has CGI, not just monster battles and whatnot, not just the supernatural gods, but actually you can see it in the landscape, where some of the landscape that they're trudging across during their adventures is real, and then that's juxtaposed against what would have been, it's probably not blue screen technology, it's probably some kind of digital compositing where half of the actual background mountains and whatnot are obviously CGI, and you can tell the lighting doesn't match, and it's just, again, even these sweeping vistas that you get outdoors just don't look real. They look like composited background, and you can tell what's CGI and what isn't, and it really just pulls you out of any kind of believability. Let's continue on. October 19th, 2019, 3.5 stars. Fun movie with decent CGI, but some parts are lacking and don't go into it with high expectations. Yeah, that's an understatement. If I had to give this a star rating, I would give it 1.5 stars because, you know, it doesn't even meet 2 stars. I'd give it 2 stars just for the budget and the effort, but I'm reducing half a star because the people that produced this should have known better. They had an original 1981 film, very simple plot structure to go along with, and they failed that. They tried to muck it all up. They overcomplicated it, drew everything out, made everything so long that even the action became dull because it was just long and unnecessary. And it took plot points from the original but used them in all the wrong ways. There was no mystery. There were some callbacks like the mechanical owl. The mechanical owl looked like they took it straight out of the original. It's just too bad they didn't use it in a good way. There were a lot of callbacks to the original, and again, if you hadn't seen the original, a younger viewer, a millennial that hadn't been born yet, they would be wondering, well, what is all this weird stuff? Because the movie almost expected you to see the first one to understand all where or how these callbacks might have fit in. It just doesn't work on any level. Let's continue on. September 22nd, 2019, 2.5 stars. Movie felt kind of hollow and way too straightforward. It's a movie that you would watch if it just so happens to be on TV. Well, I'll challenge that belief. I think if you just find this on TV, you'll check out about 30 or 40 minutes into it. It just becomes boring to watch. Yeah, and you know what's going on by 40 minutes into it, but by then, with all the flashbacks and explanations and whatnot, you're just bored and you're wondering why you have to watch this long, drawn-out spectacle. What's the point to it? I can only imagine what would have happened if I had been in the theater when I saw this. I would have probably wanted to walk out because it's just an overwhelming amount of CGI spectacle and it doesn't grip you at all. 2 stars. Give me the campy 1981 version with Harry Hamlin any day. This rendition takes itself way too seriously. Yeah, it does. There was humor in the original, just in the right places, just like you would have in, say, a Marvel movie, the humor sprinkled in just right. In this one, I didn't even get to anything with humor. It just takes itself too serious, and everything is a serious affair, long and drawn out, over dramatic, everybody playing their roles in a dramatic fashion. And, you know, there's just so much magical, mystical, chaotic stuff happening, and everyone takes it completely seriously. And, you know, it's funny, the audience is surely overwhelmed like I was watching all this spectacle, and yet the actual characters participating in all this spectacle, even the ordinary soldiers in the story, they don't have a problem. It doesn't confuse them at all. They just like brush it off like another day at work. It doesn't work on any level. We have another one here, 4.5 big stars from August 25th of 2019. I really enjoyed this movie. I just watched it on Netflix in 2019. The relationships among gods and humans are pretty interesting, intricate. The stories are moving, engaging, and provoke deep thoughts on identity, loss, death, power, family, love, etc. The actors and actresses are candies to the eye and have good acting skills. The graphics are very clear and realistic. It was a great experience. I don't know what this person's talking about. Let's break this down. Yes, it's on Netflix. It's still on Netflix today, December 2019. The relationships among gods and humans are pretty interesting, intricate. No, they're not. It's very confusing. You almost can't tell who's exactly a god and who's a demigod, and you can tell surely who the gods are when they're on Mount Olympus and when they use their magical powers, but otherwise it's a whole lot of god and semi-demigod characters just kind of having drama with each other. And again, the way it's told, kind of chopped up and in flashbacks, makes it hard and confusing to follow. And you know, when you see Perseus and his first trial where he witnesses his father die, his father is a fisherman, and we have to have a big, long, drawn-out scene where Perseus's human or adopted father has died. I felt nothing because they hadn't even set the father up. I barely knew who he was, and already he's dying, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for Perseus, and I absolutely felt nothing. It was like I was looking at a big CGI spectacle with CGI ocean they were swimming in, and I felt nothing. It was just like watching it from a third-person point of view, going, well, this is kind of boring. The stories are moving, engaging, and provoke deep thoughts. No, they don't. Again, it's not even visually believable. The loss, death, and power, and family, and love, and all these things the movie really seriously tries to push onto the audience, but I felt nothing. It felt like I was just watching actors and actresses go through the motions. And there are a lot of big actors and actresses in this movie, well known, used for different purposes, particularly the ones that have godlike powers. And they're just wasted. Liam Neeson is Zeus, and he's in this blurry, shiny armor, and that's basically all he does is stand around in this blurry, shiny armor and like issue commandments to the other gods, and it's kind of a lot of CGI surrounding him and engulfing him for the purpose of him to do not much at all, and you'll see a lot of this in this movie. Whole lot of eye candy and nothing else to it. You know, this reviewer talked about eye candy. Yeah, that's what it is. It's just eye candy. The graphics are clear and realistic. Well, the graphics, the CGI is very clear, very sharp, and very shiny. That's not realistic. That's why the whole world in this, what's supposed to be the real world, feels like just as fake as the model that the gods are walking on in Mount Olympus. So, you know, no 4.5 stars here. This is 1.5 stars, peaking at 1.5 stars. Here's a 1.5 star review. While it's faithful story-wise to its source material, while still differentiating itself simply by being darker and a bit more cynical than the '81 film, Clash of the Titans 2010, despite having its moments, is a terrible remake of a cheesy '80s classic. With the exception of Liam Neeson as Zeus, and to a lesser extent Ralph Fiennes as Hades, as well as Alexa Davalos as Andromeda, the performances are not that good, with Sam Worthington barely speaking anything above a whisper. Yeah, exactly. You know, they're saying to use subtitles. The actors, there's a lot of big actors in here, and this movie doesn't do them any favors. They're just like cardboard god characters with a hell of a lot of CGI to convince you they're gods. And Sam Worthington, yeah, he's nothing special. And again, I'll say Sam Worthington in every movie is nothing special. In fact, everybody praises Avatar. I did a rotten review, a contrarian rotten review on that. Sam Worthington is the big, focus in Avatar. And Avatar's crap, and Sam Worthington is forgettable. And Sam Worthington, it was forgettable, nonsensical, boring character in Terminator Salvation. In fact, everything I've seen Sam Worthington in is disappointing movie-wise, and Sam Worthington's performance, I don't know, it's like Sam Worthington playing Sam Worthington. He's one of those type of guys, except some people that just play the same character in every movie are successful because they're better at picking the right movies. Sam Worthington has picked all the wrong movies, and that's not going to cut it when you're just playing yourself all the time. It's a complete fail for Sam Worthington yet again. Half a star, August 2019. It simply wasn't good. Yeah. 1 star, a bastardized version of beloved Greek myths. Well, let's be fair. The original 1981 movie, that was not exactly a true Greek myth, as you would find in the literature. That was, also a bastardized version of Greek mythology, but it was enjoyable. It was very linear, very short, yes, cheesy, but very effective. It was emotionally engaging. The 1981 film is far superior to this with a far lower budget. Harry Hamlin is a nothing actor today. He went into TV land pretty much. He had very little Hollywood success. But yet, I'm sorry, his performance was pretty damn good. It was very effective. A lot of things in the original movie are not Greek mythology. And when I use the word true Greek mythology, what is true Greek mythology? No one really knows because it is not history, despite people wanting to believe it is. Ancient Greek mythology is subject to interpretation. It has been for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, good luck figuring out what's true and what's not. But in general, neither of these movies are anything, historically accurate, right? But neither is Greek mythology. 4 stars, a strong direction with dazzling special effects make up for the sometimes blandish story. No, it's not sometimes blandish. The whole damn thing is blandish. Once you get used to the, super shiny and expensive CGI, just expect 2 hours of that because it's just boring and bland, and boring, bland, and expensive is what I would call it. Let's see here. We have a 5-star review with a whole lot of garbage in there. 1-star review from January 16th, 2019. This movie bombed. It was like watching a video game culminating with a kraken that looked like every other generic CGI monster of the last 10 years. Actors sucked. The gods looked ridiculous. Even Medusa was lame. All this technology will never recreate or capture the magic of the original film, no matter how many times they try to do this in the future. Rest in peace, Ray Harryhausen. Again, yes, the stop motion animation of the first film looked a lot more realistic. It fit better with the real world. The first film looked like it was made in the real world because it actually was made in the real world. This film feels like it was made inside of a video game, and yeah, exactly. I agree. 3 stars, September 30th, 2018. Right off the bat, Sam Worthington lacked charisma to lead. His boring quest was to kill the Great Kraken. To help him, an oddball mix of cliched characters and the super hot Gemma Arterton as Io. Most of the team was forgettable. Lax action sequences. Scorpions were lame, too mechanical. The Medusa scene was fantastic, but the Kraken part was anticlimactic and unimpressive. Forgettable characters. Ending was corny. Few of the Games of Thrones cast I spotted. Davos Seaworth playing himself again. Yeah, there were actors. There were a lot of actors, big and small, in this thing. So many that have been in other things that we've seen in everything from Game of Thrones to sci-fi movies to James Bond movies. The actors weren't the flaw in this, though. They probably sucked up a lot of the budget, just like the CGI. But all those actors and all that stuff going on and all that drama that didn't have any effect on anything, it just made this thing long and boring. And it was almost more fun just to try to spot all the actors that you could recognize more than it was to follow along with the story. If I had come home from a day of work and then tried to watch this, I would have fallen asleep. Luckily, when I saw this, it was on DVD, somebody else's DVD, and so I kind of passively watched it the first time. I watched it again recently just to refresh myself, and it was just as boring, even more boring than I remembered having seen it the first time. 1.5 stars, August 23rd, 2018. Never again. Waste of time. 5 whole stars. August 17th, this movie needs to be watched again, but especially while high. The graphics are amazing, the lead actor is stunning, and there's just so much dope shit going on here. Please all roll a joint, smoke, try rewatching. This is effing amazing. So this reviewer is saying that this becomes a 5-star film if you're high on marijuana. Maybe he's correct. I'm not into that, so somebody else will have to comment on that. 4 stars, July 21st, 2018. Not the best of anything, but entertaining. No, it's not. It's very boring. 3.5 stars, June 26th, 2018. Cool CGI, some cool action scenes, Liam Neeson as Zeus, and that's pretty much it. Please, Hollywood, stop making movies with Sam Worthington in them. Thank you. Yeah, again, I'll say it again. Sorry. It's not personal against Sam Worthington, but everything he's in sucks. There's a point at which you say, well, like I said before, he's just really bad at picking things. Okay, but Will Smith, like he plays himself and everything. He's better at picking a lot of things. Other actors, they play themselves over and over again, and they just happen to pick enough movies here and there to be successful. Sam Worthington just he picks every rotten movie to be in. Is there any movie he's been in that isn't rotten? You might try to argue with me and tell me that Avatar isn't rotten, but I'm sorry, by any kind of movie standard, it's rotten. It is just forgettable rotten. And again, like this movie, it is simply a CGI fest of enormous gigantor proportions, just CGI for the sake of showing off CGI. That's what this almost appears to be, but this actually had a lot of actors taking themselves seriously in this, so it's a little more than that, but it's still rotten. 3.5 stars. People crack me up. This movie was roasted when it came out, so much so that I didn't go see it in the theater. As a die-hard fan of the original, I couldn't bear to see them make it too serious, which would eliminate the beauty of the original's adventurous cheese or make it too cheesy as well, thus insulting the original. Well, I finally decided to watch it on DirecTV. Granted, my expectations may have been low, but after watching Louis Leterrier's directorial follow-up to a superb reboot of The Incredible Hulk, so this person's saying that this surpassed their expectations and they're sorry that they listened to the negative reviews. I don't know where they live or what country they're from, but in America, I don't believe you. I don't believe that an American citizen would watch this and consider this some fantastic masterwork. So wherever you're from, Godspeed, but I don't agree. 2 stars, no, just no, bad movie, bad. Go back and think of what you did. Yeah. Yeah, it should be punished. You could say that, I guess. 3 stars, February 2nd, 2018. Kind of enjoyable despite Sam Worthington being a very one-dimensional lead. It was a solid spectacle in the special effects department with Grant adventuring into the unknown as Perseus is set off to save a kingdom. Ralph Fiennes hams it up a wee bit, much as the devilish Hades, but it was Mads Mikkelsen and Liam Cunningham providing the best roles. Yeah, that could be. You know, the thing I noticed right off the bat with Sam Worthington is that he looked very small in this. Now, I'm not saying he's a small actor, but just the way they filmed this, maybe the angles they chose, maybe the CGI he was inside of, he looked like a small person in this, you know, not some heroic Greek hero. He looked like a demigod that was kind of like a real small demigod. That's just the way he appeared next to everything else. I'm not sure why, but it came across that way to me. You know, there's a lot of other weird things the way this thing was shot. For example, there's a lot of handheld shaky cam at times, and this isn't going on during the action sequences. In fact, during a lot of the action sequences, it looks like they're using traditional dollied cameras. They're using what would appear even in the CGI effects to be a camera that would be a real-world motion on tracks or on Steadicam or something like that. Something that we expect traditionally in a Hollywood movie. And then there are scenes that are shot indoors, which are pretty much just dialogue between characters. And for some reason, we need to have that shown to us with like a handheld shaky cam effect, like you're in some bad, I don't know, TV melodrama detective thing, where you see a lot of that kind of shaky cam that's supposed to make it more dramatic on TV. You see that in this movie, and I'm not sure why, because it's really off-putting because it happens indoors during talking scenes, and then you go back outside into where you can see everything and there's action, and all of a sudden you're back into this steady cam work again. And it just clashes, like it literally clashes like Clash of the Titans, and it's not good. And I don't know who came up with that. Because most movies, your action movies, you get all the shaky cam and stuff during the action, but this is reversed. You get it during just the talking, boring scenes. Not sure what they were trying with that, but it's weird. Half a star from January 22nd, 2018. Another shitty remake. I'll say yes. I don't know what they were thinking. They should have just not remade it, and they should have just gone for a totally different story, and then maybe it would have been less offensive to people that had seen the original. But this is just like taking a few elements and plot points from the original and like shading them up with CGI really bad. So it's probably worse for people that have seen the original. 3.5 stars, November 29th, 2017. Although it doesn't really have the kitschiness and cult status as the original, there is still much to like in the new remake of this sci-fi classic. The best thing about this is its special effects and watching Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes chew the curtains. They're calling this a sci-fi classic. Okay, I didn't know Greek mythology was sci-fi, but I guess if you saw this on the Sci-Fi Channel, and maybe you did see it on the Sci-Fi Channel, this is a sci-fi classic. I don't even know what to say to that, except, yeah, Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes chew the curtains. That's about it. They stand around a lot on Mount Olympus, which is completely comprised of a room full of CGI, and just like, kind of boring drama with each other. Yeah, 1.5 stars, November 15th, 2017. The gods are not pleased. 1.5 stars, October 16th, not English. 2 stars, October 8th, not English. 2 stars, July 13th, 2017. Completely superficial and boneheaded VFX reel that's not without its moment of fun if you're into creature effects, or like me, find the idea of a glittery Liam Neeson and a wheezy Ralph Fiennes as ham-fisted deities appealing. Yeah, they're all effects. All these godlike characters are just surrounded with just wrapped in CGI effects. Some of it looks good, some of it looks kind of boring, and you get tired of it. But either way, it doesn't like make it more dramatic and more realistic when they have their drama amongst themselves. It just makes it look more like a video game. Even video game cutscenes have more drama than this stuff because they're not this long and boring. We like to get back to the action. This movie has action, but even the action is it's just drawn out and not original and not fresh, and there's nothing about it that feels like you should care about anybody or anything. You see people die, you see people get hurt, but you don't feel anything. You just feel like you're watching from a distant point of view, like you're one of the gods on Mount Olympus just looking down upon statues. That's about how emotionally involved this thing feels. July 7th, 2017. As a remake, Clash of the Titans adds very little new elements to the original story. The script is just okay, and while the acting is good, it's not nearly as good as it could have been. That being said, the special effects are very well done, the action is fun and entertaining. The Kraken is arguably scarier and more badass than, but not as iconic as, the original design, and the film faithfully pays homage to the campy tone of the original. No, it doesn't. This is not campy at all. It's completely serious. It's expected to be serious. There's no laughs to be found here. The original, it was not 100% serious, and it had comedy at all the right places. This is long, drawn out like drama, like melodrama, and there's nothing campy about it. So this reviewer is completely off his rocker if he thinks there's something campy about it. 1 star. Yet another in a long line of unnecessary remakes. The original is a charming classic, not perfect by any stretch, but entertaining nonetheless. This remake detracts from rather than adds to the original. The special effects are better as the original is from 1981, but it falls short in every other category: story, acting, makeup, costuming. My list of complaints is long, but I don't want to list them as this movie has already taken an hour and a half of my life I can't get back. Well, it felt like more than an hour and a half. That's That's how much it bored me. And I'll agree with this reviewer, the makeup wasn't even good. For all the money put into the CGI, when you looked at the soldiers that were supposed to be coming out of recent combat and dirty, it looked like fake dirt on them and makeup, and everybody was actually too clean with like clean looking dirt applied to them. Yeah, even the makeup was a fail. And everything out in the wilderness was a fail because the wilderness areas looked like wilderness with a lot of CGI sprinkled in, and you could tell that the background was half real and half CGI, and it just didn't work. It didn't feel real at all. You know, especially the dirt on people. The dirt was obviously just like dark makeup, and for all the money in the CGI, you would think they would put better work into makeup, but they didn't. 3.5 stars, June of 2017. An action-packed, pulsating, thrill-a-minute adventure that makes 96 minutes seem to fly by. It's like this reviewer's watching a whole different movie, but let's continue. A stellar cast are brought in for this film concerning the story of Perseus and his attempts to bring peace to Argos and prevent the destruction of the city and its entire population. A must-watch for any action film lovers as well as those interested in Greek mythology. No, it's a fail on all those levels. In fact, let me just say that the whole story that you're supposed to sympathize with Argos because they've insulted the gods and they're going to be punished. Well, you almost want to see them be punished because they come across as not likable characters, these rulers of Argos. And I'm kind of, at the beginning, I was kind of thinking, you know, I'd like to see the gods just wipe them out because I don't feel sympathetic towards them. And even the soldiers and whatnot that travel along with Perseus, they're just kind of like assholes. And I don't feel like I'm afraid that they're going to be killed or maimed or whatever. In fact, I'm kind of hoping that they're all turned to stone by Medusa. That's not what happens, but that's what I was kind of hoping. Because they're not likable characters. 1 star, May 31st, 2017. About the only thing this version has going for it is that it does feel like a classic story, even if the modern effects are bad and the acting is terrible and the plot is lacking. Yeah, let's just reiterate that even the ocean had to be CGI. I mean, why is that? I don't know. The budget, even the ocean effects and all of the ocean, just in a regular scene of a ship on an ocean that had no action or anything to it. It was just fake. The ship was CGI. The ocean was CGI. It was approaching Beowulf levels of CGI where it's almost entirely inside a green room somewhere. It didn't look quite that bad, but it was approaching it. And why was that necessary? They put so much work into the CGI. Couldn't they put some effort into actually some real sets, like maybe some wooden ships, some real building somewhere? Nope, it all had to be CGI. Very regrettable. 2 stars from May 5th of 2017. Though this fantasy adventure remake, I have yet to see the original, has a great cast, decent score, and some impressive visuals. It all feels extremely hollow, and it just isn't exciting enough. This is primarily down to the weak script, obvious plot, and the fact I am not given any reason to care for these characters. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. You don't care about any of these characters, not even the main one of Perseus. Even his dad, when you see his dad die right at the beginning, you're like, well, yeah, so what? Your dad died. I mean, you don't feel anything. You don't feel anything for any of the guys along with Perseus. It feels like in the script, as far as bad script, the original movie, Perseus went on this adventure, and along the way he had setbacks, and the gods helped him a little bit. But in this one, right from the start, the gods are just endlessly dropping magic items to him to help him along, and it's almost like a video game story, as bad as that is, where you just continue from one waypoint to the other and magically you get the next special item dropped into you that materializes. And that's exactly how this movie goes along. It feels like nothing. There's no payoff to anything. Perseus is given he's given his Pegasus mount just like handed to him. He's handed a magic sword. He's handed a mechanical owl. Like, this guy doesn't really have any problems, does he? Like, all throughout the story, things are just magically dropped into him, almost like, you know, not literally parachuted into him, but the magical Greek god way of just parachuting weapons in to help you. And it's really stupid and feels like it just sucks all the tension or anything out of it, and you just don't care after a while. Like I said, I wasn't 20 minutes into this and I just didn't care about anything going on. 3.5 stars. Pretty solid remake, changes a lot from the original, and some of the story beats are questionable, but it's got a good pace, some cool designs, and good action. It's a fun fantasy movie. I dug the aspect of Perseus wanting to remain a man no matter what, aside from him cheating a bit at the end. I completely disagree. Everything in this was handed to Perseus. The gods were dropping in cheat codes to him all along the way in the video game sense of it. It felt like a video game. You didn't care about any of it. And it changed a lot from the original. It added a lot of unnecessary stuff to the original and just kept some of the plot points and just dropped a whole lot of nonsense in there to make it seem a whole lot more long and boring. I could barely sit through this thing. 1 star, April 9th of 2017. Clash of the Titans is really bad. It was terrible. It's stupid. The action is boring. The acting is awful. The CGI is vomit-inducing. The script and writing and story is paper-thin. The dialogue and direction is flat. It's so stupid and boring. It's a terrible movie. I agree 100%, but I give it 1.5 stars because I don't know. The CGI was pretty, so, it wasn't like Beowulf level bad. So I'm going to give it 1.5 stars. 2 stars from March 20 of 2017. All sound and fury and signifying almost nothing. Agree. But not quite. The story seems to be led by a roll call of mythological characters rather than an actual plot. For all its lack of substance, it is still quite watchable. I'll disagree on that one. It's completely boring. And one of the other big flaws in this script is these gods are so powerful and they need to, have their drama with each other. Why even bother involving Perseus or doing things and having humans carry it out? In the first movie, they kind of showed you why that would be. In this one, they don't show you that at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're left wondering, why don't the gods just beat each other up and get it over with? Why involve the humans? What do they have to do with it? That's the big failing here. It doesn't logically make any sense. The gods already have everything they need to do what they want to do. Why do they need humans? It's never explained. Whereas in the first movie, it is explained how the gods are jealous and there's a story there. But this is so convoluted and long and boring. If there is a message like this in this movie, you never actually get it, so it's lost on the audience. It's a complete fail. 2.5 stars, utterly disappointing in every level. Yeah, but I say 1.5 stars. 3 stars. Nowhere near as memorable as the classic 1981 film, but it does have some great creature effects and well-shot action scenes. The real drag of this rendition is our less than charismatic leading man, Sam Worthington. His performance is phoned in, no substance. He's more like a cookie-cutter action hero who feels no need to try. But that's Sam Worthington in every single role of his. He was the same in Terminator Salvation. He was the same in Avatar. He's the same in every other no-name film I've seen him in as well. He just plays himself. He does what he's supposed to do. And if he would just pick the right movies, he could have been something. But, Avatar, obviously it didn't do wonders for him and that's another reason I'll say Avatar is complete rotten shit too, is because if Avatar was so great, how come it couldn't make Sam Worthington into anything? Well, yeah, because it's not so great, is it? And neither is Sam Worthington. But I've made my point too much on that, I think. January 21st, 2017, 1.5 stars. Once a film with potential and a big-name cast with reputations for good films, Clash of the Titans is such a forgettable film as it completely wastes all of its actors' abilities and pushes a very choppy and dull story throughout. As mortals challenge the gods and their importance, demigod Perseus leads an expedition to find a weapon capable of stopping the Kraken before it destroys all of Athens. Fast-cut action scenes and numerous monsters can't aid this film, as even the few interesting fights, and I'll continue that throughout the movie, are boring. It all adds up to that. It's just a lot of stuff that adds up to a very expensive thing that is ultimately boring, and that is the biggest sin. 3 stars from December 30th, 2016. It's a good movie to watch. I'm sorry, Muhammad A., but I've seen your same comment posted on dozens of movies now. So happy posting, I suppose. 3 stars, December 9th, 2016. It's not great as a piece of film, but it's tremendously entertaining for what it is. I sincerely believe that Sam Worthington has it in him to be a great leading man. He has acting chops and a great face for the big screen. However, studios forced him into too many potential franchises too quickly to allow anything to effectively stick short of Avatar. Well, I'll disagree. First of all, this is 1.5 stars, not 3, and nothing stuck, not even Avatar. I'm sorry. I just told everybody that, and I'll say it again. Avatar didn't help him because Avatar was also a rotten movie, despite what the critics may tell you. 3 stars, November 15th, 2016. A pretty impressive touch on Greek mythology. As I already have prior knowledge of ancient mythology thanks to Rick Riordan, I enjoyed this movie just as any other person experienced in this field would. I liked seeing the modified versions of Medusa and the Three Witches, all of which were unique in their own way, so I'd say this is a pretty well made movie. I'd say no. There is no definitive Greek mythology. It's all subject to interpretation. If you go back a century, there's a different interpretation. Century before that, there's yet a different interpretation. We're just in our current interpretation. And 100 years from now, people will be picking and choosing different elements to call Greek mythology. That's the way it is. That's why it's like prehistorical and it's not actual history. But in any case, this is not impressive. Some people may just like this because they like the little nuggets of what is today popular Greek mythology. But as a remake of another film from 1981 called Clash of the Titans, which again I'll show you right here. This is a cheesy movie, 1981. It is far superior to this one. This movie here, this one is completely rotten. And I think an audience score of 40% is a little too high. I would push this down. I would say an audience score of 20 to 25% would feel more fair to me. Why? Because I think so. And the 27% tomato meter, although I don't know why the critics did it, I would say that, yeah, 27, 25, all the way around. A 20%er, a 25%er, a complete failure, completely rotten, and just feast your eyes on that, that promotional picture up there. You notice how all that CGI is a little foggy. Very pretty, but very foggy with a lot of clouds and fogginess. Yeah, that's the way the movie looks. It's very pretty, but it's very stylish, and it's also very boring. So it's completely rotten. And I will see you again on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.